very excited to be here today. My name is Sandra Rowling. I'm Director of Transport at the Climate Group. And one of the big projects I have the pleasure of leading as part of that is something called EV100, which brings together international companies that make commitments to go electric. And I'm very pleased to be here with Kevin Hagen, who's Vice President of Environmental, Social and Government Strategy at Iron Mountain, who's one of those companies who have already gotten onto that journey and made the commitment. And we've already seen this very exciting video to show some of the early moments of bringing this commitment to life as well. So very excited to be here today to hear a little bit more about what it means to go electric in your fleet in very practical terms. So welcome, Kevin, and thanks a lot for joining us here today.
Hey, thanks, Sandra. Great to be here. Appreciate the time.
Absolutely. So let's start with, the basics. And we've already seen a few impressions, but what does this commitment overall mean for Iron Mountain, and why did you make that choice?
Well, it's kind of a big step for us. The biggest part of our remaining carbon emissions is from vehicles. That's only because we've spent quite a few years working on our electricity footprint, which dwarfed all other aspects of our greenhouse gas footprint. But now that we've had a bit of success in finding renewable energy solutions across the world, especially in our data center business that now operates on 100% renewables, we've been able to achieve a pretty high level of renewable penetration for our electricity footprint. And that kind of paves the way to, well, electrify everything, part of our next greenhouse gas piece. So the fleet footprint has been the next thing up. And we've been thinking about it a lot, we're working on it quite a bit in the preparation, and now starting to see some results as we roll it out. Appreciate showing the video. Looks like everything's going great, doesn't it?
Yes, that's why we have you here today, to find out, maybe some of those darker secrets behind all the big successes. I know that obviously it's a very new journey. It's not just buying a different kind of vehicle and then you're done, I imagine. So tell us a little bit about your experiences. What have you learned along the way? What are maybe some of the things that have also surprised you as you got going? And what are maybe some of the things that others that are considering this type of journey might be learning from?
So we're not UPS and we're not FedEx. We don't have hundreds of thousands of vehicles, but we do have a substantial fleet. I think we look a lot like a lot of companies of our scale. We have around 5,000 vehicles worldwide, in about 60 different countries. And it varies from company cars in Europe, especially, to vans and fleet delivery all over Latin America and Europe, and US, to in the US, a lot more larger scale vehicles, especially Class 6 box trucks. So with all that, there's a wide variety of vehicles across the whole world. What I think we're seeing is that there was a lot we didn't know until we got the data. Right? So I like to joke with friends, the data shall set you free. Right? So we're moving from, this emotion, and it's exactly the same thing that happened to us in electricity. Right? We moved from, we should do something, to let's get the data and understand where we really are, what's behind the scenes here. And that really led us to some chance of making a difference. I think what we really learned is it's a little more daunting than we thought. It's kind of a big deal. And getting it organized and getting it moving and getting the data was actually a lot of the hard part.
Makes sense. Obviously, I guess it helps to be someone who deals with data to a certain extent to start with, to appreciate the value of it. But what are some of the things that you sort of take it from the data? What are maybe some of the things that have surprised you that were a bit different than you would have expected from the outset?
That it's different in different countries. The circumstances are different all over, especially from North American eyes. The different landscape in different places was important. So, for example, having a conversation with our leadership team in the US about fleet electrification wasn't obvious yet at that time. This was a couple years ago when we said, hey, by the way, did you know 24 cities in Europe are banning diesel vehicles over the next decade? And so if we don't figure out EVs now, we can't serve customers then. Like, oh, well, that changes things. We probably need that information so we can use those opportunities to learn fast. And the other thing we learned from this, from the homework in the front end, was different regulatory environments, different incentive programs, tax structures. It's so varied in different places. What we recognized was if we do the homework better, we can find places that already are in the money, if you will, places where the total cost of ownership, and in fact, in some cases, the first cost of procurement for EVs for us is actually already making money versus status quo. So that was an eye-opener. I'm like, wait, this makes money now? And so identifying those locations really made it a lot easier to get on board and move from sort of pilots and testers to let's roll this out in seriously in a way that makes sense. So that's where the London program came from. That really is a reflection of our more big picture total cost of ownership analysis that really opened our eyes.
Great. Yeah, I think that's really good to hear because let's face it, for businesses, money is always an important piece, and how are you possibly going to finance this? I think is one of the questions that's coming to mind to most of the decision makers that you would bring such a story to. So, what else did you need in order to bring the company on board? Who else did you involve, and what are the different stakeholder groups that you need, and what does it take to convince them?
I think the first key to this was the recognition and, taking a page out of help from our collaboration partners. You can't leave the fleet folks alone to try to just do this by themselves. This is a technology disruption, not a replacement of a vehicle. And in the process, that meant a different mentality about implementation. So pulling together folks from finance, operations, facilities management, real estate, procurement, of course, even marketing, right? So pulling people, we never got that film if the marketing folks hadn't been in the room, right? So I think the opportunity to pull people together to look at things differently was really important. You can't get there without the facilities team. We need chargers, and we need to dig up the parking lot. Right? That's not popular. So you better have the whole picture together. Additionally, what we found was that the total cost of ownership model was really important to think about. Leaving folks to figure out, first cost least advantage is hard task. So figuring out though that the total cost on a, let's say, 5-year basis was actually positive in a lot of places already was kind of key. As I like to joke with the CFO, once we figure out how to make money at it, nobody stops us. So it was kind of a shift of thinking, but it was harder. So for example, little things about making sure this is coordinated. A good example, the fleet folks think it's free fuel, right? Because diesel has been in the calculation of what it costs to do operations. Electricity is managed in an entirely different budget, in an entirely different part of the business, a different silo, if you will. So to the facilities management team, this looks like bad news. We're increasing load where they've been incented to put in LEDs and reduce load for years, right? So now all of a sudden we're increasing load, probably at an inconvenient time of day. And if we do it wrong, we can spike a new peak demand and end up charging ourselves even more. But if we don't do the electric, we're stuck back in not making progress. So getting those folks to talk and putting it on paper so that the budgets get organized and we don't fool ourselves one way or the other, and we don't create unnecessary objections in the organization. That was all really important to put all the players together to get a better view.
Thanks, Gavin. I think it's quite an important point that you're making there about electric vehicles not just being a one-on-one replacement for the internal combustion engine vehicles and just needing a different way of thinking about things and setting things up. So can you talk a little bit more about what exactly is different? What are the things that you need to think about differently from ICE vehicles?
This is one of the eye-opening moments, I think. We focus a lot on trying to make EVs do what diesels do. And the conversation tends to be, they don't do X, Y, or Z. This is where range anxiety or other things come from. Right? And often it's whether or not the diesel did it ever. But it's the perception that we're not going to do that. I think a turning point moment has come for us when we started to think the opposite direction. What do electric vehicles do that diesel vehicles can't? And as soon as that clicked, it was like, oh my goodness. The joke I make is that it's like when I had a flip phone and people showed me an iPhone or smartphone, I went, oh, but it doesn't fold. Well, yeah, it's the internet in your palm and it's going to change your life, right? But no, it doesn't fold, right? So I pretty much figured out later that folding wasn't so important to me as all the other things that it could do that I never imagined. So I think that's what's really happening in the electric vehicle space. As we switch to, it doesn't make noise. The driver in that video said, I don't have to check the water, I don't have to check the oil. All of a sudden, things got easier. And then when we realized that drivers actually love them, it's actually now a perk to get to drive the EVs because drivers really like it. All of a sudden, everything changed. And I think that when we make that moment to switch gears to, all the things that EVs do to open doors for us that we couldn't have done before, it really changes the game.
Thanks. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. As a last question, just to ask you, what's next on your horizon? What are the things that you feel like, okay, this is something that still needs work, and where do you see some opportunities to maybe do that together with others as well? Maybe also as an invitation to those listening in today to think about where the opportunities for co-creation are.
Working together with others is crucial to making progress. Folks have joked sustainability is a team sport, but we really experience that. Whether it's other corporations and companies, or whether it's our NGO partners like the Climate Group and the EV100 program, continuing the track record we've had from our E100 successes, being able to coordinate with others is really important. I joke, if you don't tell people what you're doing, how can they help you? So the idea of being able to be connected, we're learning fast from others. why make the same mistakes, right? So we can learn fast from others, and the collaboration platform that the Climate Group provides, for example, it really gives us the permission and the opportunity to coordinate with competitors, with peers, with companies maybe we would never have met before, to be able to put the thing together in a way that gets a bigger bang. We get faster and further when we go together.
Thanks. I think that's great final words, and to the point of, you need to tell others what you're doing. Hopefully that's also inspiration for everyone being part of Virtual Electrify today. It's obviously all about exchanging and sharing and getting people connected. So thanks a lot again, Kevin Hagen, for joining us today, and for everyone who's listening in. And I'll hand back to Sarah.